my story is I grew up in Australia, so it's slightly unusual compared with Portsmouth. But looking back recently, I've been writing down stories of my childhood, and I remember that they didn't really invent leisure when I was a child. Well, certainly not in Australia, because I lived in the Sydney suburbs, actually, just round the corner from Clive James, where he grew up, in Cogra. And leisure hadn't been invented in the 1970s. There was golf for the working men in Australia, but for families, not really. We didn't really know what to do at the weekend. And there was actually DIY that I'll come to a bit later. But we just didn't know what to do. So I'd take a trip to the dump, or that was well planned ahead, you know. A trip to the dump this weekend, Michael. Something to look forward to. One time I actually came back with a 14-foot fiberglass surfboard. But that's another story. But there was go for a drive was something to look forward to at the weekend. And we go for a drive and sit on the seafront, Botany Bay. I think it was actually called Ramsgate, strangely enough. And sit on the seafront. And my mother, Frida, would be sent off to the Greek shop for this exotic thing called the yogurts. And they were in a glass container, and it would be Greek yogurt with a fruit compote at the bottom. And it had its own little plastic spoon. And we'd sit in the car looking over the Botany Bay and the oil refinery, actually, on the other side.
What's the name of those Australian cars? Holden, wasn't they?
Oh, it's in the Ford Falcon, yeah. In the Ford Falcon.
Right, in the Ford.
Yeah, we were a Ford family, rather than Holden family. And we'd sit there looking at the sea. This was at the time of year when it wasn't beach weather. And I'd look forward to eating the yogurt. There'd be the tart flavour of the yogurt, and then you'd be looking forward to, you could see through the glass jar that you get this amazing sugar rush of the fruit compote at the bottom. My father Jim, however, he peeled the top off, stuck the spoon in, stirred it all up. What a waste. It was the horror of it, you know, I just could not believe it. So as I was talking about leisure, my dad was quite keen on DIY, but he had very ambitious projects, and I'm not sure. I mean, it seems strange now, but they didn't actually have YouTube in the 1970s, and he had no training in DIY, so it was unpredictable. And on this list the list was started off with about 23 mammoth projects. But it actually, instead of getting less, it got more, and it got up to about 32. But they were projects like take down the chimney to make the driveway wider for the Ford Falcon. And I don't actually remember the taking down bit, but the building bit I do remember. I was quite young. And he wasn't a bricklayer, had no training, no YouTube, as I say, and he'd have the string, and I don't know if anybody's done any bricklaying, but you've got seconds, you put the mortar on the brick, and you've got seconds before the brick absorbs all the moisture from the mortar, So you have to set it in place. But my dad was always a bit slow with this, and that's not quite in line with the string, and he'd tap it on, too late. The mortar would go hard, and so he'd have to remove the brick, scrape the mortar off, and start all over again with fresh mortar. Try again, it happened again. So I would be young, carrying a brick up a plank to hand it to it. Here you are, Dad. It's in your next brick. But it seemed to take weeks. And another project on the list was build a barbecue, which was also bricklaying. And as I was young, I wrote a message in a tin box and put it on the left-hand side of the barbecue. So I've often wondered if it's still there, or if someone's discovered it.
What did the message say?
I can't remember. So my name's Michael Osborne. I'm 6 years old or something like that.
No, you're not. Oh, sorry.
Leading on to my dad and DIY. So he wasn't all that good on health and safety, and I was there. It wasn't bricklaying this time. It was some sort of woodworking, and this screw just would not go in, and he had the screwdriver. He's forcing it, and he slipped, and it went right through his hand. The screwdriver went right through his hand and came out the other side. To great horror, miraculously missing tendons and major blood vessels. But as Jim, my dad, wasn't too keen on hospitals, he just pulled it out himself with much drama, and my mother Frida bandaged it up. But not exactly setting a great example for his son. And then he actually did it later. He did the same thing later, having not learnt, and it went through between his finger and his thumb. Again, pulled it out. But what job wasn't on the list of DIY was doing your own dentistry. And this was when we moved back to the UK. And he decided that this tooth had died. It was one of the back teeth. I can't actually remember if it was a molar, if it was a wisdom tooth, well, one of the back teeth. And he just sat there in front of the TV. We were living in Sheffield, and it was quite exciting actually, because we had colour TV. It was still black and white when we were in Australia. And he was watching the snooker, pushing this tooth backwards and forwards for days. Anyway, eventually, I'll be thinking, what's he doing? Why doesn't he go to the dentist? And eventually it came out. He was so proud. Look, he suggested he could have it made into an earring. And that's the end of my stories. Thanks.